Hey, this is Gary. This is Mike.
And Daniel. We're not professionals. We're just three addicts sharing our experiences, strength, and hope regarding recovery.
Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other addicts and to practice these principles in our lives.
Welcome to another episode of the 12th Step Podcast. My name is Gary.
And this is Mike.
And this is Daniel.
Well, hello, guys.
Hello.
Good to be here.
It is.
Good to be here.
You know, I've been thinking about something, and I want your take on it.
All right.
Okay. And this is a really, really off the cuff kind of a thing. So this is kind of a new thought. I was talking to a person that I work with, who I mentor quite a bit, and you guys are familiar with the nomenclature, the vernacular of like, are you in a good place?
Mm-hmm.
Are you in a bad place?
Yeah.
You know, so we were talking back and forth, and I said, are you in a good place? And this person looked at me and said, I'm in a new place. And I thought a little bit about that, and I thought over my recovery experience. And I says, oh, there's been a lot of times that I've been in a new place,
mm-hmm.
you know, and I said, well, tell me a little bit about what that means. What do you mean by that? And they said, well, it's a new place. I said, I can't really qualify it as good. You know, but it's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's new, and it's stretching me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes the stretch can be uncomfortable. And so I thought a little bit about, you know, my life has changed. You know, I've been in recovery for 11 years, but my life has changed dramatically in the last 2.5, and particularly so in the last 8 months. You know. As things have fallen into place, and it's fair to say, I never, you know, I say this all the time. I couldn't conceive my life as good as it is, but not only can I not conceive it as good as it is, I couldn't imagine that I would be doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, and we were talking a little bit about it before we got on and started recording, but each one of us have experienced something like that. Even recently, all of us have gone through some major life changes in the last year, 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, all three of us are in very different places. So,
you know, in all fairness, Gary, I think we've been going through changes.
From the beginning?
Yes, we are. We absolutely are. But interestingly enough, I think all of us are. It's not just a matter of just the last 8 months, but when I consider my life even longer than that, I've been in recovery now for 7 years, and I think of the immediate changes that happened in that first year or the second year, and though they may not necessarily be the same kind of changes that have occurred in the last 6 months, 8 months, a year, there were definitely lots of changes that have happened during that period of time as well. So I think I love the comment. I'm in a different place, because it allows my mind to think. The first thing I early on in my recovery, I wanted to be either in a good place or a bad place so I could get back into a good place. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like those polar opposites is all I really wanted. And now I really relish being in a new place.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity and challenges and all that it elicits is growth. And that's phenomenal.
And that's kind of the idea that I wanted to talk about, because, you know, you're right. We've been changing and growing for a long time. But in the beginning of my recovery, it's like I was trying to repair the life that I had,
mm-hmm.
you know, trying to put things back together. But the more and more I got things in my life in order, new things started happening, new job opportunities, new, I don't know, just everything is
just new opportunities.
Just new opportunities. Yeah. And, you know, so yeah, so then how do you navigate that? Because there is some growing pains, and sometimes the new and I like to say I'm enjoying the stretch. People have asked me, how are you doing with the new job? I'm enjoying the stretch.
Yeah.
It's challenging, and I wouldn't call it easy, but that doesn't mean that it's bad or unpleasant.
Yeah.
Is it challenging? Sure. Is it hard? Sure. But I'm enjoying the stretch. It's a new place.
No, I mean,
I think there's go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel the same way. You know, my current job is definitely stretching me in ways that previous jobs haven't. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy going in each day, like not knowing exactly which way I'm going to have to stretch or what things I'm going to have to do. But ultimately, it's a new opportunity to rise to the occasion, to use the tools and the knowledge I have, and it always turns out really well. But there's also sometimes where I do fumble. I fumble the ball, and in the past, I would have made up excuses. I would have, made up some flimsy reason why it didn't work out. Now I just, I fumbled it. This is why. This is what was going on. It's not an excuse, but this is the reason. And instead, in the past, I'd have people upset with me, or so many other outcomes would happen. Now there's like, oh, thanks for your honesty. All right. When can I expect that? And it's just like, oh, okay, well, give me 3 more days and I can get that to you. It's so interesting how that is.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the same kind of things, Sure, I make a mistake and it's like, well, I make a phone call and say, well, this is the situation, this is what happened, and they're all, okay, yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Whereas had I made up those excuses and stuff like that, it just would have been this long, drawn-out thing.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Mike?
Yeah.
I was just thinking that some time ago in my very early on recovery days, how I feared change. I was just so afraid of change because I felt like that exposed me then to acting out behaviors, right? I mean, that was sort of the genesis of all of my acting out, was dealing with something I didn't know how to deal with or whatever, or I was struggling with this or struggling with that. And so I think I feared change. But as recovery has moved along, I think it's given me the tools then to embrace change and more importantly, to embrace uncertainty. I think that's a key component to change, is the uncertainty associated with it. And I think that's go ahead.
I was just going to comment on your comment, even more than embracing the change, but even nurturing it.
Yes.
And maybe that's part of the embracing it, but it's something that you're actively seeking and nurturing, Go on.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think that's because to be quite honestly, I think that the change is healthy. It's part of the process. It's part of moving forward. And embracing that and encouraging that and nurturing that are all very healthy things we're talking about. More importantly, it stretches us in ways that we've not been stretched before, and it allows us then to navigate uncharted waters without acting out. That's a key component of that, is to say, look, you can really do this in a recovery space. And I think that's been really healthy for me, really good for me. Fascinating topic. I remember oftentimes that our common counselor would talk about, make this comparison as though we were scaling a tall mountain.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That we reach a certain place, and you might call it a plateau of some type, but some sort of a resting point where we're taking in the vast view of the vistas and all of the things that are really impressive, sort of patting ourselves on our back on what it is that we've accomplished, and maybe sweating a little bit, looking up the way, realizing what we still have ahead of us to accomplish. But that we always wanted to move forward. We may rest there for a little while, but thinking to ourselves, well, if the view's spectacular here, just another 100 steps up the way, the view from there is even going to be even better. And I think that's really a lot of what we're talking about here, is this idea of, okay, I've introduced this amount of change in my life, and I'm in a new place now. But look at all the great things that have come as a result of being in this new place. But guess what? This isn't my final spot either. Mm-hmm. I want to keep moving, and I want to keep challenging myself, and I want to keep arriving, and I want to experience that all newness again and again and again. Never really arriving, but always striving as though it's in our future.
No,
I liked his analogy about that a lot.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. It's absolutely fascinating. And then the other thing is that, we've talked a little bit about, about change and things like that. But what amazes me is that I've learned to to enjoy the process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm enjoying the stretch. What would have stressed me out or made me hate jobs or my job or come home miserable are now the very things that actually, you know, I'm finding some enjoyment in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm enjoying the stretch. I'm enjoying the challenge. You know, I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. So if something new comes up, you know, I'll go ahead and do it. In fact, Daniel helped me with the situation the other day. My boss came and there was like this new training that had come down. And, you know, I had gone through the training and then I needed to pass off this stuff. And so I was doing this presentation with my boss, and my boss was so impressed with it that they said, all right, will you record that for me? And I go, what? No, really, I would like you to record your presentation so that I can use it as an example in the district. And I said, are you serious? And she goes, yeah, yes, I'm very serious. I thought, well, all right. And so I reached out to Daniel and I said, do you have any experience with this? And he says, sure, let's go ahead and do this.
Brought all my equipment and we did it.
Yeah. And I recorded my presentation and I gave it out, and it was actually has been received really, really well. Now, I had never considered doing anything like that before. And I certainly, I mean, for what it was, we did a good job, but I certainly wouldn't say it was.
I could have done it better.
Yeah. It certainly wasn't professional because we were just sitting in my store doing this presentation. But the point is that was a stretch. That was something that I had never done before, that I'd never considered doing. And it'll be interesting to see what, if any, opportunities comes from this, you know, or how far that gets passed around, or if a request comes to redo it with higher production value, or, you know, I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah. Very,
very interesting. But that was certainly outside of the comfort zone. But it was a good stretch. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I've noticed, and my boss constantly comments on it, because, well, you know, towards the end of the day, we always meet up and we review the day and things that are going on. And, you know, she has continually mentioned, she's like, it doesn't matter how crappy of a day it's been, you always have, like, the greatest attitude. Because she's like, you know, you'll always just pass it off like, it's no big deal. And, like, she's just constantly, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, because tomorrow's another day. You know, once today is over, I don't need to worry about those things. You know, it's you know, and it's because of recovery. You know, in the past, I used to those things would just weigh me down, and I would just, like, ruminate on them over and over and over again. But, you know, the person that probably blew up at me is probably having a bad day or something else is going on. It's not about me. It's about some event in their life, and I just happened to be in that moment when they decided to pop. You know, it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to end my life. It's not going to ruin my day unless I let it. And it can be fixed. Or it can't be because it has nothing to do with me.
Right.
And so I just kind of let it roll off my back. And, you know, the owner of the company, he's a guy that unapologetically lets everyone know he doesn't trust anyone. He just doesn't trust anyone. And that just kind of sometimes rubs the wrong way with me. And I'm like, oh, man. Because in the past, you know, being the people pleaser that I was, man, that would have just got under my skin all the time. I got to prove to him. I got to prove to him. And I just need to make sure that my boss prove to her that I'm doing what I need to, and I'm reaching my goals. You know, and she backs me up every time. You know, and he's like, well, what's going on with him? You know, with Daniel, and she's like, oh, he's doing everything that he needs to do, and X, Y, Z, and blah blah blah. Which is great. It's nice. But the biggest thing is because I've hit this place, because I'm constantly being stretched, I feel more confident, which is a good thing. You know, and then the next time I get pulled and stretched in a different, you know, direction, it may not be comfortable, but I'm confident I'll be able to get to the end point and be okay through that. And I think that's what, you know, getting to these new places and being stretched helps. It builds up that self-confidence, that your self-esteem. You know, you're not looking for it outwardly anymore. And ultimately, we start looking back and saying, wow, look at all these big things we accomplished. So when the next hard thing hits us, it's like, I know I can make it through this because I've done all those hard things in the past.
It's that 9-step promise coming to work.
Yep.
Coming to fruition.
That's Mike's favorite right there.
Yeah, Mike, do you got a comment on that for us?
I was just interesting how we were all sort of thinking parallel path. I was thinking the exact same thing. That is 9-step promise. It's through and through. I unapologetically love the 9-step promise. I really do. There's so many truths in that promise talking about how it is that, things that used to baffle us in the past, for whatever reason, we're able to find some clarity in some things. I think that's fascinating, and we'll see. I think that came up in our last podcast. Is that we'll see that God has been doing these things for us that we were unable to do for ourselves. So I'm going to read this. I'll read it again. This time I think I'm going to read it in its entirety. It's just brief, but it is such a part of. It's so important to understand the vision of what it is that recovery is providing, and this certainly does that for me. So if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. And I think we've all talked about this new happiness and freedom in our life. We'll not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. I think that's relevant. Mm-hmm. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we'll know peace. No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We'll lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We'll intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. And then this question, are these extravagant promises? We think not. They're being fulfilled among us sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. And I think that's that paragraph embodies everything that we talk about. All we can do is lend experience to that very topic, the very thing that they're talking about there.
Absolutely.
And we're sharing from our own experience all those things that have come to pass. And it's in those moments of sharing those things that have come to pass in our own life that we realize for ourselves that it's working. Recovery is working. And that we're finding, and that enables us then to move on to the next thing, to move on to the next challenge, to move on with, to be in a new place.
The new place.
That's right. Not to be in a good place or a bad place, but to be in a new place and be completely okay with that. That's 9-step promise for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. No, I it's kind of funny. The last two topics we've had to go back to the 9-step promise.
Oh, I think we can go.
We could probably do it every episode.
Oh, for sure.
But it's just been very interesting these last two. It brought us back here. But sometimes we need that push to get into that uncomfortable zone. I know I definitely needed that. Both Gary and Mike, Gary watched that as my sponsee. Mike was there at the come to Jesus moment at therapy. I was just stuck, and sometimes we need some external force to push us into that area where we finally are so uncomfortable we move into that that uncomfortable spot or that new zone. So if you find yourself in there where you're in a moment where you're just uncomfortable, realize this isn't a bad thing. I have a sponsee that's in a really uncomfortable situation right now, and I just have to keep reminding him, this is good. This isn't bad. I'm even in an uncomfortable situation right now, but it's not bad. It's good.
It's a new place.
Yeah, it's a new place, and things are going to turn out in a good way.
I want to interject something here, Daniel. I was there that night, and that was not a gentle push. That was not a gentle push. And I think sometimes that we think to ourselves that therapy and recovery and everything else, that we're going to get this gentle push to move us in the path and move us in the direction. You didn't experience a gentle push that night.
Okay, I was being nice.
I hope our common counselor listens to this episode and realizes that that was not a gentle push.
It was not.
But one of the things that I always come back to, because I can't tell you how many times I've had a call from somebody who has said, he was mean to me, he was this, he was that, or he was this other thing. And in every case, I can always come back to that night and say, and many nights of my own, and say, all right, Daniel didn't get a general push, but what he got is he got exactly what he needed from a counselor who absolutely cared.
Yep.
And that's a monstrous big difference.
Yes.
I think sometimes we feel like that if it's not gentle, then it's not loving, and it's not that it was taken in some way that maybe shouldn't have been taken. The fact of the matter is that we can push really, really hard and still come from a position of love. And I think that's exactly what happened that night.
Oh, no. I got strapped to a rocket car and shot across the desert.
I was going to say, sometimes you got to kangaroo kick somebody into the pool. It's fine.
I was being nice. But I needed that. It pushed me into the area that I finally got to that point that I could start moving in the right direction. If it had, and that's what I had gotten all the time, that slight nudge, that really gentle, come on, just move there, and it never was enough. And then finally our counselor decided to use the rocket car, and it got me to the right place. And I don't regret it.
No.
It sucked in the moment, but looking back, I am so grateful for it.
No,
it's sad to see anybody walk away thinking that he doesn't have our best interest in mind.
Yeah.
That somehow, some way, he's losing patience with us, or he's losing, because I think it comes out more often than not. In fact, always, 100% of the time, it's always come out that I may be rough on you, but there is nobody in your corner like I'm in your corner.
Yeah.
And I think that panned out in that situation with you, so evident, where he was rough on you that night, very, very rough, but it's exactly what it is that you needed to bring you to where you needed to be.
Well, and the funny thing is now, like, I'll go into sessions with him and we joke, we laugh, and it's like two friends sitting in a room talking, and we have, it's still therapy. I'm still having, conversing on the things we need to, but there's no point where it's like, where he has to like grill me or he has to push me anymore. It's just like, well, what do you think about this? And I give an honest answer. What about this? I give an honest answer. Even this last time, I had a session with him and talking to him about what's going on, and he kind of corrected me a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I failed there, and he's like, no, we didn't fail. You just learned something. You learned these behaviors this way growing up. It showed up again. So now we need to course correct.
Yep.
And old me would have been like, oh my gosh, I'm just a failure, blah, blah, blah. Now I just see, oh, okay, I see how I did it wrong there. I won't do that again.
Right.
So it's really nice getting to that place. But I think too many people, they just start giving up, like, oh, he's tough on me, he's mean, he's horrible. But man, if I had a choice between him and someone else, I would pick him.
Sure.
Like, I know he has my back no matter what. And we've gone through enough good and bad stuff that he knows me completely and totally until I prove him otherwise. So,
you know what?
Yeah,
I'm reminded of something that my sponsor told me on the way to our first 12-step meeting. He looked at me and he asked me how I was feeling. I just said, oh, this is awful. And he said, well, if you want to be successful, you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And challenged me to always have one foot out into the unknown. You're going to have to go someplace that you've never been if you want to go somewhere that you've never been.
Great piece of advice. He was obviously a wise sponsor.
Well, he was right, so.
Yeah, he was right, spot on. I've always enjoyed those SAA meetings. I still remember my very first. I contacted a fellow group member and said, "Look, we'll go, but we're going to go together, so it's not so awkward going alone." I'm always amazed at the people who walk in the door by themselves for the first time and just the shock in their eye and what it is and how uncomfortable it is, et cetera, et cetera. So he was wise. He was clearly wise. Like, look, I'm taking you to this meeting and I know it's going to be uncomfortable and I know all those things about that, but you stick with us and you're going to be just fine. Yeah. And those meetings, proved to be life-changing for a lot of folks.
It's a new place.
So
it is.
It's a new place. Not bad, not good, just new.
I mean, everything in life has a moment of awkwardness and uncomfortable. Sure. I mean, even you guys could probably remember a moment of awkward and uncomfortableness when you wanted to kiss your wives for the first time, when you were dating them. That turned out really well. There's other times where we're really uncomfortable and we take a leap to get a new job. We don't know how things are going to look. We don't know how we're going to pay bills. It's super uncomfortable, but that turns out in most cases.
But if you're doing what you're supposed to, and this 9 step promise stuff, you're going to be in a good place, and then that gives you what you need to get to a new place.
Yep.
And very often, it might be different, but in my experience, especially lately, it's been good.
Yeah.
Been better.
All right.
Yeah.
It's that time.
Is it?
It is.
All right. Well,
I always wonder how that happens.
I know, right? So I'm just going to close by wherever you're at and whatever you're doing, get ready and get yourself to a new place, whatever that new plateau is. And with that, this is Gary saying, do the next right thing.
And this is Mike saying, do the work necessary to find the peace that recovery can bring.
And this is Daniel saying, find the humility in your recovery.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find us.
As a fellowship of recovering addicts, Sex Addicts Anonymous offers a message of hope to anyone who suffers from sex addiction. Check out saa-recovery.org.